Gord, it's great to see you, man. I think the last time I saw you, I was trying to remember what red carpet that I saw you and the other guys on, and I can't remember if it was Juno's Walk of Fame. It could have been Walk of Fame.
Yep. Maybe not recently. Rudy, so many red carpets, so little
I
time, you
know,
know?
I know. You know what? It's
Yeah.
the love we have for the band and everything that you guys have done over the years and how you've represented Canadian music, just representing yourselves in music and being original, being able to write classic songs, songs that will live on forever. How does it feel knowing that you and the rest of the guys are in that state now as basically legends of music?
Well, as a songwriter and a performer, it's actually the most flattering thing and the best outcome you can possibly wish for, you know? And it was really cemented when we did that last tour. Um, and you see the emotional resonance that the music that we created together as a group has for people. You know, we've been really blessed with a super long career, and people have a real, you know, a deep affection for the group. And over the years, we've heard tons of stories of people that select one of our songs for their wedding song, or another song has a deep resonance for them for on a personal level, and that's super gratifying. But that, you know, that last two, we're looking out into the crowd and seeing people respond, you know, emotionally, with enthusiasm and with sadness at times and stuff. It was a real it was a real buoying experience for us, you know, as musicians. And yeah, I swear, you know, when we started, we honestly didn't know whether Gord was going to be able to do the first show. He was really ill, and I swear that as the tour progressed, and as we were getting that emotional support, and the love, you could feel it coming back from the crowd every night. He got stronger, and when Gord was strong, the band is always stronger. And you know, I wish it could have gone on forever. I wish we were still playing now, obviously. So it's, yeah, it's great. It's wonderful to have that kind of love and affection from your fans.
You know, what's wonderful for me is, and you wouldn't know this, you were actually the first member of the band that I interviewed, and it was literally 20 years ago, man.
Oh, no way. No
Literally
way.
20 years ago. And when I do post this interview, I am gonna put the picture up of you and I, because I still have the photo, not on the phone, but actually, not even a digital camera. It was actually a camera, with
For
film.
ourselves here, my
And
friend.
yeah, and it's been great to be able to have that connection with you and the rest of the guys too. How do you think as a soloist, because that's when I first interviewed you, it was a solo album. What differs from you from the Tragically Hip when it comes to your own music?
Well, I basically, with the hip, we developed a really functional and quite successful cooperative songwriting style. And a big part of that for me as a writer, was to you never really finished an idea. That the guy, our relationship was such that, you know, if he brought in a riff or a little bit of a melody or something, we would go around a circle, and each guy would throw something out, and we would start playing with each other. And sometimes it stuck, and people would contribute ideas as the song progressed. And Gord, all the while, is putting bits of melody on top, scrambling through his notebooks, trying to find lyrics. And that's really how we wrote, for our entire career. Now, it's funny, after a fairly lengthy period of grieving Gord after he died, you know, it was like my biological clock kicked in again, that, oh, I should be writing another record with the guys right now. And then it dawned on me, it's like, oh, now I've got to, you know, not only finish musical ideas, but I've got to work on lyrics, and I've got to work on proper songs. And it made me just appreciate my band and my situation that much more, because it's a lot. It's hard work. And of course, working my entire career with a lyricist like Gord, it's, you know, he set a pretty high bar in terms of the meaning and the content of the words. So you can't really, I've said it before, but you know, you can't sit back and write yummy, 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 I've got love in my tummy, and get away with it, you know. So it was really just, it was like learning how to do it all over again, you know. So and it's good. It's been very very rewarding. This last record, I'm not a diarist, or I don't keep a journal or anything like that. So I used my time lockdown during the pandemic to write this particular record. This was how I expressed myself emotionally, and chronicling my day to day adventures, like everyone else sitting around looking for something to do.
How do you describe your sound compared to the sound of the hip?
Well, I mean, I contributed. Every guy in the group contributed to all the individual songs. So there is an element of the hip in there right away, with the way I play bass, the way I push the beat forward and compose. So there's that element. It's very traditional rock instrumentation. I wasn't gonna break out the bagpipes from when I was 14 years old and write a bagpipe record or anything like that. But again, part of our real distinctive sound of the group is that really since 1992, Gord
Yes.
was doing the lyrics and the melody, and that really gave us a very distinct style. And of course, um, I'm a different lyricist, and I hear melody differently. Um, and so that's what I really had to work on the most, and that's where the main difference lies. And obviously I'm not a baritone like Gord. I have a higher voice and all the stuff. But again, it's an interesting art form, and it makes me really appreciate what I did throughout my entire career. Just having the guys to bounce ideas off. Like, even when you go through a bit of a writer's block, or nothing new is coming, being in the hip, you can go into a writing session and someone will introduce an idea that will trigger something in your head and help you break out of it, which is a really great gift to have. And it was amazing. And each guy would tell you, you'd bring an idea. I'd bring an idea to the group thinking, this is going to be a Cracker Jack song. This is a wicked tune. And it would kind of land with a thud with the rest of the guys. And then you'd toss off a riff that was literally a toss-off riff, and it would become Poets or New Orleans a Singing. And that's the great thing about collaboration. I do need to say that I did all the writing for this, but James McKenty, who helped me produce the record and record the record, he's become a great sounding board for me for musical ideas in my solo career. And it means a lot. It's good just having guys to play with.
Well, I had a chance to hear the new single, and I'm going to ask you about that too. Which, the
Sure.
second I heard it, I thought of summer. I thought of rock and roll summer. I thought of, parking the car by the lake, your friends jumping out of a convertible, basically doing, and I can say this to you, doing the old school things that we used to do that you don't see anymore. For folks who don't know, I haven't heard the single. What's the single called, and how? What's
Single's
it
called
about?
Gool Guy. It was the first single from the record. Yeah, yeah. And I totally agree. It was the last song that I wrote for the record. It came about very, very, very quickly, and the second I latched onto it, I had the same sort of feeling as well. That you put it in the car stereo or slip the CD in, and you find yourself driving maybe a little more quickly. It's propellant, and yeah, you and I are of the same vintage, where you'd latch onto a song that would become the theme song for summer of
Yeah.
2023 in this case. And that was a great thing. And that's the great thing about music as an art form. It brings you back to place and time. And that was really, again, when that song came together quickly, and I knew fairly quickly that, oh, okay, this song's going to have some resonance with people, hopefully. That's what you always aspire to.
Sometimes can do the same thing too.
Yeah.
What's that one about?
Well, again, I wrote the majority of the record while I was while I was locked down, and obviously I was very grateful. I was home, my family were safe, uh,
Yeah.
but there were days where it was very, very difficult. I was missing my friends. Um, I live in an open house, and so it was difficult to have private time a lot of the time. And frankly, there were days, particularly during the winter, where I wasn't quite myself. You know, uh, like everybody, it was a challenging time psychologically, and not being a journalist in any way, a diarist. Um, I wrote a song about it where sometimes I just did not feel like myself. Sometimes I was elated, but sometimes I was a little more depressed, and so I tried to capture that uh, variety of emotions musically and lyrically in the song sometimes, you know. And like everybody else, sometimes I would perhaps put a little bit of Bailey's in my morning coffee during the winter of the pandemic just to get through the day. And I really basically, that's what the song sometimes is about, is how how to learn how to get through the day locked down during the pandemic. And yeah, that's what came out the other end.
I know one of the things that helped me was downloading a lot of 70s, 80s, and 90s music. I
Sure.
felt like it was my sanity. It helped my sanity. And of course, part of those downloads was the band's music. What do you think it is for me and for you in that era? And I'm not knocking about the rest of them, but what do you think about that era that was special? Because when I listened back to it, I mean, forget about the fact that I was having a good time with the music, but just hearing those songs, there was just something magical about not just the stories, not just the music, but what it did, because it didn't matter if you were black, white, whatever. At that moment when those songs are on, it just brought people together and nobody cared about anything else.
Yeah, I agree. That music harkens back to a time when people valued music more. I remember as a young man, I grew up across the street from Rob from the group, and every nickel I made mowing lawns or shoveling driveways, I spent on buying records. And it wasn't just one song at a time. I was never a radio listener. I listened to records, and so I think during that era of music, you would know the single that might inspire you to go down and pick up a record. But I'm a side, B side guy. If anything, I'm more of a B side guy. I like to go deep into the records. And when an artist records a record in that fashion, one single recording session, there's a consistency to the way the record sounds. And you can identify the group and the record by who produced it and what time in their career they're doing. Pick a band, Rolling Stones, Rush, doesn't matter. You can tell right away that it's them. And that's why I think you have that feeling. I certainly have that feeling that I'm transported back to a different time and place when I hear particular albums or particular songs. Even now, today, driving around, I'll listen to XM or something, and I'll hear a song from my youth, and I'll go back to my record collection, pull out the record, and revisit the record. And it it's a wonderful thing about that art form. Music is really the only thing that allows you to move and dance and get up or get contemplative. Yet at the same time, there's an intellectual component to it with the lyric, and certainly the melodies can stick in your head. And again, so I have songs and albums that I put on when I'm feeling down, songs that and albums that I put on when I'm feeling up or when I go out. And it was just a wonderful time in music, and I think perhaps we've lost our way just a little bit. You know, uh, the actual physical act of listening to an album, um, you couldn't just skip it with your thumb. You had to get up. Lifting up the toning arm was a bit of a pain, and once you got immersed into it, you couldn't wait for that moment. It's usually only about 20 minutes at the most, and you flip it over and listen to the other side. And then you get more, feel a deeper connection with the artist, because you're not only listening to a single, but you're hearing the stuff that maybe didn't get on the radio, but in a lot of cases has a deeper meaning to it. So again, it's a long answer, but I'm still, to this day, I'm an album guy. Like I pick up an album and I listen to it every single day, and I love it, and and I love the deep cuts. So
Same here. And of course, this is one of the reasons why I wear this. Just remind those
absolutely.
kids, It was
Absolutely.
all
I
about
don't
what you
even
said,
know
the
that
flip
people would
side.
know what that is anymore.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, everything you described really is about what you recorded, man, which is, of course, a new album. What's the album called?
The record's called Incontinental Drift.
Why
So,
that
and
name?
it's, yeah. Well, again, it was all written and recorded during the pandemic. And obviously we live in tough times, living next to the states where culturally and politically they seem to be coming apart at the seams a little bit, the divide between right and left. Um, it's hard to watch, but it's also infiltrating our society in no small degree. We've always had the divide between French and English, but now we're also very conscious of identity politics in a number of different ways. And my worry, and what I was trying to express with that title, is that we all have to work together as a community and as a country, a larger community, to find our common ground and get to know each other better, to bring us together, as opposed to looking at simply what keeps us apart. And it's just like running a family, or a friendship. You have to invest the time to bring, find the common ground, bring ourselves together. And I worry that the pandemic kind of exacerbated our tendency to push against each other. It was a heady time. People got pretty emotional. I'm close to Ottawa, so I saw the trucker protest firsthand, and totally understood what was trying to be expressed there. But there was an anger that was un-Canadian, I thought. And so really, the expression of incontinental drift is about the country physically breaking apart, which could easily happen, not just in the United States, but could easily happen here unless we try to seek that common ground, and that which brings us together. Newcomers to Canada, Aboriginal, folks that have been here a long time, a settler culture. Um, we have a fantastic country here, but we need to all work together to preserve it. And it does take work. So yeah, that's basically what I was trying to express with the idea. I'm an optimist. I'm an eternal optimist, but it requires work to make it happen, just like a friendship.
Amen to that. And you ever get a chance, there is a YouTube video that I saw, and somebody put it together, and I thought it was brilliant. And they showed major cities during the pandemic and what they looked like. And they were all so desolate. It was scary to think that we went through this.
Yeah.
And the fact that somehow we did come out from the other side, but we came out differently on that other side.
Yeah. I'll seek that out, because if the pandemic really taught us anything, again, I was very grateful to be locked down with my family, and I did this recording session in the middle after we detonated, so I was able to do what I normally do. But I missed going out and seeing live music, and seeing my friends, and it made me appreciate the interaction, that sense of community, particularly at a concert. There's a real sense of community when you're sitting in the audience of the show, and I experienced this throughout my entire career, where you know and as a music fan as well, you see a show in a small town like Kingston, and you look across the room and you see a face that you recognize, and you're like, oh, they're into this band too. So here's something else that brings us closer together. And to have that taken away during that pandemic time made me appreciate it that much more, and kind of made me vow to myself that I was going to work on those connections, and never take them for granted ever again. Exactly to your point. Because if we don't work at things, get out and support live music, get out and support your friends, support your local stores and restaurants, boy, we're going to lose it. And the pandemic is going to seem like normal times. And I don't think anyone wants to go back that again, living in closed doors and stuff. So.
I agree. Are you going to be touring this album? And also, is the band also going to be out touring also at some point?
Yeah, I'm going to be out playing a bunch of shows this summer. Yeah, I got a slate of shows starting in early June, which is great. I put together a great band, James McKenty playing guitar, and Jeff Hallischuk, who drummed on the record. Wonderful player. And then my youngest son, Elliot's going to take the bass chair. So it'll be totally fun. On the hit front, I've always been in the never say never camp in terms of that. But right now we have no real plans. We were very fortunate a couple Junos ago. They wanted us to do something, and we said no and said no and said no until it was suggested that we do a song with Leslie Feist, who
Yes.
we knew really, really well. Gord was a big fan of hers, and we're gigantic fans of her. And that's really been the one and only time that we've kind of got off the couch and played together. And it was a blessing for us, because we obviously, the hip isn't the hip without Gord, and none of us have any interest in going out without him. But it was a gift to get together with the guys again, and to play with Leslie, and to know that we can actually do it. If a circumstance arises, there's a charitable component to it, or if guys just want to do it, they know my number. I'd be happy to do it, because I really do, more than anything. As much as I love continuing to make music, I miss making music with my bandmates. I did it for 35 years, and it's a part of me. So
Fantastic. Look, I'm going to ask two more questions and we'll wrap this up. They're off topic a little bit, but one is, what do you think about Amanda Marshall coming back with new music and back to touring? Because again, for me, when I started doing all these interviews, it was you, it was her, Our Lady Peace. Like, I love the fact when I'm hearing about my artists still performing and still touring. It's been a long time for her. I'm just curious in what you think about her coming up with some great music and back on the road.
I think it's a great thing. I really honestly do. There's one thing, we do a lot of things great in this country, but what we really do great, and Amanda's perfect examples of, we produce really good musicians, really good performers. It's a very, very difficult country to tour. You can't have a day gig and tour Canada. It's just physically impossible. So you have to learn to take the show on the road. And to do that in this country, you have to learn how to play an empty club on a Tuesday night, on a Wednesday night. It's not Saturday night every night. And that's what makes you a better performer. And I would include Amanda in that, and certainly my group, OLP, Arkells, Trues, Glorious Sons now are picking up that. And it's literally that experience, going town to town to town. And then seeing people in the middle of a snowy night in Tuesday, pick a town, and they've come out to see you play. It makes you dig that much deeper. And that's why we produce such great artists like Amanda and like the Hip. And it's something, if we don't get out to your small local club, the folks that are trying to run music 6 nights a week, and support them, we're going to lose that. And if we lose that, we're going to lose a great gift that we have in this country. There's a reason that there are so many great Canadian entertainers and comedians, because you got to take the show on the road, and you either hate it and you quit, or you get really good at it. And Canada produces some great entertainers. So I'm happy for her. We got in a very comfortable routine with the Hip, where we were like, 6 months of writing, 6 months to a year of touring, take a little time off, and repeat. And we did that for 35 years, and it's like an old shoe put back on when we got on that stage. So again, if I'm saying anything, it's to get out and support live music, because you never know. You may see your new favorite band tonight somewhere in Toronto. Go down to the Horseshoe. Someone good's always playing. So
Absolutely true. Last question. Favorite Godzilla movie?
You know what? I've got the original first Japanese Godzilla. That is by far my favorite one. Where Godzilla was a real metaphor for atomic energy and the perils of atomic energy, from a country, very sadly, the only country to ever go through a nuclear war, on the receiving end. And so yeah, I watch this version quite a little bit often with my kids. They've all been very schooled on Godzilla. Though a very close second would be Rodan, which is also a fantastic Godzilla.
Mine's got to be Son of Godzilla. Uh,
Yeah, the
just
little
absolutely loved that one because that little guy, when he figures out how to do the beam, and it's a little like circle, like a smoke.
blowing the smoke rings. I know them all so well. I'm not overly familiar with the new versions as much, but I keep going back to the 1956 original.
Yeah, yeah,
The OG.
yeah, they're okay, and I do enjoy it, but nothing beats Saturday or Sunday being at home, maybe in a cold winter day, and Creature Feature comes on television, and it's a Godzilla movie. Those were the times I remember most. That goes back to this and all the good times.
You're speaking to the choir here. I'm 100% with you. I'm such a Godzilla fan. I actually have the original soundtrack record from the '56 version, which I torture my family with every once in a while. So
I love it, my friend. Thank you so much for doing the interviews with me 20 years ago, making time on red carpets, and even having time to do this. Congrats on the new music. Looking forward to seeing you on the road, and cross fingers, maybe one of these days the guys get back together again, man, because you guys are special to us. Thank you again so much for the interview.
thanks, Rudy. I really appreciate your time, brother. Thanks, man.